Here's a draft of a story inspired by your request. The calculated exit. Ava always had a way with numbers. As an accountant, she could balance a company's books with the precision of a surgeon. At home, her meticulous nature showed in the organized cabinets, the perfectly arranged family calendar, and the detailed budget spreadsheets she shared with her husband, Eric. But behind her controlled exterior was a woman teetering on the edge of dissatisfaction. Eric was steady, dependable, and kind. The kind of man Ava's parents always said would make a great husband. They had a routine marriage built on mutual respect and a shared love for their golden retriever, Max. What they didn't have was passion. Ava often found herself staring at the ceiling at night, wondering if this was all life had to offer, a predictable loop of work, bills, and grocery runs. Enter Liam. He was everything Eric wasn't. Impulsive, charismatic, and unburdened by responsibility. Ava met him at a conference out of town. He worked in marketing and had a knack for making every conversation feel like a secret shared between two people. Their connection started innocently enough. Lingering eye contact during a presentation, shared laughter over overpriced cocktails at a hotel bar, but it quickly spiraled into stolen weekends and whispered phone calls. Ava told herself it wasn't serious, just an escape from the monotony. But Liam had a way of making her feel seen, like the version of herself she'd left behind when she chose stability over spontaneity. With him, she wasn't Ava the wife or Ava the accountant. She was simply Ava. But living two lives was exhausting, and Ava knew it couldn't last. What she hadn't anticipated was Eric's intuition. He wasn't a man prone to suspicion, but over time, he began to notice the changes. The unexplained absences, the sudden interest in fitness, the glowing smile she came home with after work trips. Eric didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he did what he'd always done. He calculated. Eric started tracking her movements, not in a controlling way, but in the analytical, methodical manner he approached everything. He checked phone bills, pieced together receipts she left behind, and even installed a discreet app on her phone to log her location. When he had enough evidence, he didn't rage or cry. He planned. One Friday evening, Ava came home to find Eric in the kitchen, dinner prepared as usual. But something about his calm demeanor unnerved her. He poured her a glass of wine and handed her a folder. Inside were screenshots, photos, and timelines, proof of her infidelity. "I know about Liam," he said, his voice steady but devoid of warmth. Ava's heart raced as she scrambled for words. "Eric, He raised a hand to silence her. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll find the divorce papers in the envelope. I don't want to fight, Ava. I just want out." She stared at him, stunned by his composure. "You planned this?" "Of course," he replied. "I had to ensure my exit was as calculated as your betrayal." Eric's methodical nature left Ava with little room for negotiation. He'd already divided their assets, ensuring a fair but firm separation. Within weeks, their life together unraveled as neatly as one of her spreadsheets. In the end, Ava got what she wanted, a chance to be free, to pursue the passion she'd found with Liam. But as she sat in her new, sparsely furnished apartment, staring at the emptiness around her, she realized that freedom came with its own price. Eric, meanwhile, found solace in the quiet stability he'd once shared with Ava. His life was predictable again, but this time he welcomed it. Because sometimes the best way to move forward is to calculate your exit. Let me know if you like any changes or additions. Ava and Liam's relationship burned brightly at first, fueled by the thrill of secrecy and the allure of newness. Without Eric in the picture, they were free to spend their days and nights together without constraint. Liam had promised Ava the world, adventures, excitement, and a love unlike any she'd ever known. But as the weeks turned to months, reality began to creep in. Liam wasn't built for stability, and Ava, for all her yearning for passion, couldn't ignore her need for order. Liam's carefree attitude, once so charming, started to grate on her. He missed plans, brushed off responsibilities, and made impulsive decisions that often left Ava scrambling to clean up the mess. One night, as they sat on the couch in her apartment, Liam suggested they take a spontaneous trip to Europe. "Let's just pack up and go," he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Ava hesitated, her practical mind already tallying the costs and logistics. "Liam, we can't just leave. I have work, bills, and Max." Liam cut her off with a dismissive wave. "Ava, you're always worried about something. Live a little. Isn't that why you left Eric?" The words hit harder than she expected. She had left Eric because she wanted more from life, but was this it? Constant chaos and fleeting moments of excitement? She missed the quiet steadiness Eric had provided, the way he always had a plan, the way she never had to wonder if he'd show up when he said he would. Over time, Liam's charm wore thin. The passion they once shared began to feel more like a drain than a spark, and Ava found herself longing for the very stability she'd run from. Meanwhile, Eric had moved on, though not in the way Ava had imagined. He wasn't bitter or vengeful. He simply refocused his energy on himself. He took up hobbies he'd long set aside, made new friends, and even began dating again. His calculated exit had given him a second chance at life, one unburdened by the weight of Ava's dissatisfaction. One evening, Ava ran into Eric at the local dog park. Max bounded toward him, tail wagging wildly, as if no time had passed. Eric knelt to greet the dog, his smile warm and genuine. "Hi, Ava," he said, standing up. She felt a pang of nostalgia, mixed with regret. "Hi, Eric. How have you been?" "Good," he replied simply. The ease in his tone caught her off guard. He wasn't angry or cold. He was just content. As they talked, Ava realized how much had changed. Eric had moved on, not just from her, but from the version of himself he'd been during their marriage. He was happier, freer, and, ironically, more like the man she'd hoped Liam would be. That night, Ava lay awake, staring at the ceiling just as she had so many nights before. But this time, the thoughts swirling in her mind were different. She didn't just mourn the loss of Eric. She mourned the loss of herself, the version of Ava who had once believed in steady love and quiet happiness. Liam eventually drifted away, his promises as fleeting as the thrill of their affair. Ava was left to rebuild her life, wiser but undeniably changed. She often thought about Eric, wondering if she'd ever find someone who could balance passion and stability the way he had. Eric, on the other hand, rarely thought of Ava anymore. His new life was filled with small joys, a testament to the power of letting go and moving forward. Because sometimes, the best way to find yourself is to walk away, even when it means leaving behind the person you once thought you'd never lose. Ava's life took a slower, more reflective turn after Liam's departure. She no longer sought excitement or chaos, realizing that the fulfillment she craved couldn't be found in fleeting moments or reckless passion. Instead, she began the long process of rediscovering herself. She picked up painting, something she loved in college but had abandoned in the name of practicality. On weekends, she would take Max to the park with a sketch pad, trying to capture the peaceful moments she had once overlooked. She also started therapy, a step she'd resisted for years, but one that quickly became an anchor in her life. Her therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Hayes, gently guided Ava through her tangled emotions. Together, they unpacked her dissatisfaction with her marriage, her affair with Liam, and the deep-rooted fears that had driven her to seek escape rather than confrontation. "You've spent so much time running, Ava," Dr. Hayes said during one session. "What would it look like to stand still and face yourself?" The question stayed with Ava long after the session ended. Slowly, she began to piece together what she truly wanted, not from a partner, but from herself. One day, as Ava was cleaning out her apartment, she stumbled across an old photo album. It was filled with pictures of her and Eric during their early years. Hiking trips, birthdays, lazy Sundays with Max. She lingered on a particular photo of them laughing in their tiny first apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and takeout containers. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her regret. She missed Eric, not just as a husband but as a person, but she knew that reaching out to him would be selfish. He had moved on, and she had no right to disrupt the peace he'd found. Months turned into a year, and Ava gradually found her footing. She changed jobs, moving into a more creative role that allowed her to balance her analytical skills with her newfound passion for art. She started volunteering at an animal shelter, finding joy in small acts of kindness. One crisp autumn morning, Ava was at a local cafe, sketching a scene of the bustling street outside. She had just finished her coffee when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Ava?" She turned to see Eric standing there, holding a to-go cup and looking as surprised as she felt. He was dressed casually, his face relaxed in a way that made her heart ache with both familiarity and distance. "Eric," she said, standing. "Hi, how are you?" They exchanged pleasantries, and to her relief, the conversation felt natural. He told her about his new girlfriend, a kind-hearted woman named Rachel who loved dogs and shared his passion for hiking. Ava smiled, genuinely happy for him, though a part of her couldn't help but wonder what might have been. As they parted ways, Eric paused. "You look good, Ava." "Happier, thanks," she said softly. "I'm working on it." And she was. Ava walked away from that encounter feeling lighter, as though she'd finally closed a chapter that had haunted her for too long. Eric had moved on, and so, finally, had she. Ava realized that her story wasn't about losing Eric or Liam. It was about finding herself. And as she walked back to her apartment, Max trotting happily by her side, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The calculated exit she'd once dreaded had turned out to be the beginning of a new journey, one that she was finally ready to embrace. Months turned into another year, and Ava's life began to take on a richness she hadn't anticipated. Her creative pursuits flourished. She held her first art exhibit at a local gallery, featuring pieces inspired by her journey of loss and self-discovery. The show was a modest success, drawing a small but supportive crowd. Ava felt something she hadn't in years, pride in herself, untethered to anyone else's validation. Her relationship with Max deepened, too. The golden retriever became her constant companion, an unspoken reminder of her past and her enduring resilience. Walks with him became a meditative practice, moments where she could reflect on her progress and find gratitude in the life she was rebuilding. One day, while volunteering at the animal shelter, Ava met someone new. His name was Nathan, a soft-spoken veterinarian who had a knack for calming even the most anxious animals. They struck up an easy conversation as they worked side by side, cleaning kennels and feeding the shelter dogs. Nathan's demeanor was different from both Eric's steady practicality and Liam's fiery impulsiveness. He was gentle and attentive, with a quiet confidence that drew Ava in. They began meeting for coffee after their shifts, their conversations flowing naturally from shared anecdotes about their lives to deeper musings about dreams and regrets. It wasn't long before Ava found herself looking forward to those moments, her heart fluttering in a way she hadn't felt in years. Nathan, too, seemed to be drawn to her, but he was patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. One evening, after a particularly fulfilling day at the shelter, Nathan walked Ava to her car. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. "You know," he said, leaning against her car, "you have this way of lighting up when you talk about your art. It's inspiring." Ava blushed, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. "Thank you. That means a lot." Nathan hesitated, then smiled. "I'd love to see your work sometime, if you're comfortable sharing." For the first time in a long while, Ava felt ready to let someone into her world. She nodded. "I'd like that." Their relationship grew slowly, built on mutual respect and understanding. Nathan didn't try to fill the voids in Ava's life. Instead, he walked beside her as she continued to heal and grow. For Ava, it was a revelation, a relationship that felt like a partnership rather than a rescue. One evening, as they sat together in Ava's living room, Max curled up at their feet, Nathan turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about your past?" he asked gently. Ava nodded. "All the time, but not in the way I used to. It's like I've made peace with it. It's part of who I am, but it doesn't define me anymore." Nathan smiled, reaching for her hand. "That's a beautiful way to look at it." Ava squeezed his hand, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. For the first time, she felt like she was truly living in the present, unburdened by the weight of her past mistakes. As the years passed, Ava and Nathan built a life together. A life marked by shared passions, quiet joys, and a deep respect for one another's individuality. They didn't rush into anything, letting their relationship grow naturally, but when they finally married in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family, Ava felt a profound sense of contentment. Eric attended the wedding with Rachel, offering his heartfelt congratulations. Their interactions were warm and genuine, a testament to the growth they'd both undergone since their separation. Ava's journey had been far from perfect, but it had led her to a place of balance and fulfillment. She had learned that life wasn't about chasing extremes. It was about finding harmony in the everyday moments, the quiet joys, and the connections that truly mattered. And in the end, Ava realized her calculated exit hadn't been an ending at all. It had been the beginning of a story she'd never thought she'd have the courage to write.